Well, welcome to Regent Hall. We're in what's called the green room here, which is just a little side room of our main hall. And I want to welcome and introduce you, if you don't know, this is Paul Sharman, who's one of our church leaders. He's also, would be the equivalent in many settings of the musical director, but in Salvation Army settings, he's the bandmaster here and provides lots of musical input to support the worship. And really, we're here to discuss with Paul his journey, his working, and how that all fits together. So, Paul, would you like to introduce yourself?
I'm Paul. I'm the bandmaster here. I've been at this corps now for 33 years, so that's quite a little while. But going back a little bit, I grew up in Rotherham, in South Yorkshire. Mm-hmm. My parents were Salvationists, very busy Salvationists, as the Salvation Army was at that time. My dad was the bandmaster and the songs leader at the corps we were at. My granddad had been the songs leader before that. So we were very involved at the corps at Rotherham. And it was inevitable, really, with all the music around the house. Dad was a music teacher as well as being the bandmaster. So right. It was inevitable music was going to play a part. And my first sort of exploits in music were on the cornet when I was 5. I started having music lessons when I was cornet lessons given to me by my dad when I was 5. And I enjoyed it, and I took to it, I understand, pretty quickly, and enjoyed doing that. There's one memory I have from sort of early days in that on my 6th birthday, and I've shared this a number of times before, but on my 6th birthday, my grandparents bought me my first cornet. And I remember in their front room there in Rotherham, and them showing me this cornet, this new. It wasn't shiny because they were often frosted in those days, but a brand new cornet. And I was so overwhelmed by this, and I wanted to get my hands on this cornet. But my granddad, before he gave it to me, he said, "No, I want to pray for this cornet, and I want to pray for you and what your music over whatever that would be over the years." And this is to a 6-year-old. I was just give it a cornet, I want to blow it. But it's very much in hindsight. I remember this, and I've sort of discussed it with my mum and my dad who were there at the time, and they back up what happened there. But Grandad, we stopped and he prayed for me, for the cornet as I was going to use it, and whatever that may be. So looking back into what's happened in the sort of 50, whatever it is, nearly 50 years since then, that prayer. And the strength of that prayer really makes me think, wow, at that time, not a clue what was going to happen in those in the subsequent years, but that's a really strong memory of that at that time. Now, at the time, it didn't mean a lot. As I say, it was.
You were 6.
I was 6. I just give it a cornet. I want to have a go on it. But looking back, I think that is a really important thing for me and my faith. That knowing that prayer at that time, and as they've gone with me, I think all that time. So I carried on with that. When we then moved to Birmingham, we moved down to Birmingham when I was 7, and so I did really most of my growing up at Birmingham. We went to the corps at Birmingham Citadel then, and I got involved. That's when I joined the YP band, sing company, then subsequently the senior band. I'd also taken my music a lot further with my trumpet playing and doing a lot of music outside of Salvation Army, and building that up there. And then subsequently, when I was 18, I auditioned and I was awarded a scholarship to the Royal College of Music to come and study. Now, so that meant moving away from home, from Birmingham, and as a painfully shy young man, that really was a difficult one for me. I wanted to do it. I knew I wanted to do it, but it was a very difficult one. But I knew I was doing the right thing, because if I go back a couple of years, I went to the Division of Music Schools in Birmingham, and I remember one evening, in the late sort of devotional meeting at the end of the week, feeling a very strong call from God to go and kneel at the front. And I felt that God was wanting to use my music.
Yeah.
Now, in what way, I didn't know at that time. I thought, well, he wants me to be a professional musician and be in that world and do that, whichever way that would be. Whether that was me, because that's what I wanted to do. That's how I was sort of working it out. But I had that very strong. So moving away, going to college was something I felt was part of that. So when I was 18, I moved down here. My intention was to find probably a smaller corps that I could go to and attend and not almost dip in and dip out of, and not be too relied upon, to be able to help them with their music. And but the first Sunday I was in London, I came here to Regent Hall, was welcomed very well. I remember Dominic Stewart, who's a member of the corps here, welcomed me. He said, "Oh, you've got to come up for dinner. You've got to come up and join us." And being very welcomed. At that time, I never went anywhere else. Right. I never tried anywhere else. I thought, this is where I want to be, and soon found it to be my spiritual home. And as I say, I've been here for the last 33 years, and love being part of the fellowship here.
Right.
And
obviously now you're a church leader here.
Yeah.
You know, so.
Yeah. So it's and looking back, as I say, that painfully shy. You know, to be I could stand up in front of a group of people and play my cornet, but to say anything or to speak in front of a group would have filled me with absolute dread. But as I may say a little bit about later, God has given me those, has really worked within me to help all those sorts of things and to develop me in those ways. So all I wanted to do was play the trumpet. That's what I wanted to do. Nothing about leadership, nothing about composing music or anything like it. I wanted to play. But then after a few years, I left college. I freelanced for a little while around London, in various orchestras and various things like that. It wasn't quite working out the way I wanted it to. But then at just the right time, a job opportunity came up working for the Salvation Army in the music ministries unit, as it then was, working as a music editor. And I thought about it for a lot, and I sort of prayed about it, because I wanted to be a musician, I wanted to play. I didn't want to sit behind a desk reading notes, and it was a skill I sort of hadn't got as much of, editing and all that sort of thing. But I got the job as a maternity cover, first of all, so temporary, and it sort of gave me the opportunity to try it out. But then it worked out, so then that became a permanent job. Still thinking, well, had I got it wrong? Had I got all the stuff wrong about God wanting to be a musician in the way I thought he did? But what it did was open more opportunities to me. So my editing then developed into reading other people's scores, so that I could match. I'd done a little bit of arranging, but then to look at scores, how people do it, to start then my composing, to be given the opportunity while in there to go and lead summer schools, music schools, musicians' days, and to go and develop in that way. Again, something I never thought I would do, but because of my experience at music school, giving back in that way was really important to me. Because what I'd got from those summer schools, then to be able to give back was important. So that was where we were then. Then, with the Salvation Army, there was another restructuring a few years ago, and actually, in some ways, what I saw from that, the way that things had been packaged initially, almost seemed to devalue the job I'd been doing within that sort of editorial unit. And there's, am I in the wrong place again now? God, it was that sort of, so, I'd gone from that to that. But actually then, through that, I managed to get the role that I now have, which is as the Assistant Director of Music and Creative Arts with responsibility for brass and choral music. But again, I could see that journey of the stuff I'd been doing before, of going to lead things, and that. So on top of my playing experience and all the other things, that then led me to there. So the profession, as a professional musician, I'd been doing lots of different work, which had exposed me to different styles of music, which then meant I could bring that into my writing, which then the leading, I could then take it out and lead to others. So again, that God's plan throughout that, even though it wasn't what I thought, was very much there. And then, coming up to where we are now, to be able to lead, to go around the country to support leaders, to support groups, as well as the ministry here with the band, and as a member of the ISB over the last, whatever it is, 29 years, going around the world and with that group has been a real privilege. And I really feel that God has sort of blessed me through that, and I think through the talent He's given me and what I give back, He's blessed me through that, and hopefully blessed others through that too.
Right. So can I take you back to, you said you were a painfully shy child.
Yeah.
Standing in front of groups of people playing music. Some people talk about hiding behind the instrument. Actually, for you, was it hiding, or was it actually an explosion that you were actually able to express yourself?
Yeah, it absolutely was. It was, music gave me that way of expressing my faith. It gave me a way of actually standing in front and all that word association that goes with the music that we play, and just playing a solo and stand and playing to others in whatever way, whether it was part of a band or on my own. That was the way I could do it. And I really felt that, it's all that cycle where I felt I was expressing my faith, but I could also worship God through that. So I was giving that back. It asked me to pray out loud in a meeting or something like that. I would have come out in shakes, but actually to give that back to God, and I knew He was listening to the music I was giving back to Him.
So it was almost a way of connecting with who you were.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I was in situations sometimes, and you're expected to be able to speak out, and that shyness is still there very much within me. But I know how now I can. God could use me in different ways and give me the gifts I need to do that.
So you are a composer, a well-known composer now, very prolific. I don't know how you find the time amongst everything else and to keep coming up. And we as a church keep asking you to do little arrangements and whatever, which is always a vast blessing to have. Can you remember the first time you ever heard a piece that you had written?
Yes, I wrote a piece. I did, when I was YP band leader here. I did an arrangement of it was a Bill Himes song called "Filled with the Joy of the Lord," songster song. And I did an arrangement of it, just a straight thing, and I played it. I'd also done arrangements while at college of quintets, called quintets, but that was almost just transcriptions. But the first piece I wrote, again, was for the YP band here, and it was a march that was called "Get Involved."
Right.
And that eventually became my first published piece. So it was in the Unity Series Journal, which is the journal for the smaller groups within the Salvation Army, and that was a piece that became my first published piece in 1998 in Unity Series, and that's the sort of first time I heard that. And I was fortunate. I was a member of the staff band by then, and on the Unity Series recordings that I made every year to go along with it, I was always part of that group that played on them. Steve Cobb, who is the staff bandmaster, conducted that group, and there was a couple of my Unity Series pieces that were going in over those early years of that, and one of them in particular, a piece called "Righteousness, Peace and Joy," an arrangement of the chorus. He really took to, and he said, "Oh, I think I'm going to use that with the ISB on the programme," which actually for a Unity Series piece, which is smallest scored, thought, okay, he's going to use that. Now, he was using it straight after the interval just to get people back to their seats as they were talking, but it was still there on an ISB programme, and then you sort of sat in that group and seeing how that's well received, and then that developed on as well to Steve asking, can you write something for this, and being fortunate, and it is a real privilege to be able to do that, and to be able to sit as a member of a group like the ISB and play the music and see firsthand how that is received. It does spur you on to want to do more of that, but again, I feel it's a privilege to do that. And then from that, it sort of it snowballed a bit of other people hearing things and asking me to write, and which I was honoured to do and love doing. But I still find it really moving, really, that I'm sitting at my desk at home and I'm writing something down, or I've been sat at the piano playing, and then you hear a YouTube somewhere that there's a young people's band in Hong Kong or somewhere in Australia or America, it's playing that music, and then there's pieces that I get messages that's really spoken to people. There's a piece I've written called Everlasting Hope, which talks about strength for today and bright hope for tomorrow. A special piece to me because of why it was written, but those words have really spoken to people across the world and getting messages, and I really feel that that's God using me to write the music down, and then to take it and to take him for him to use wherever he wants to, and it can take that and be used in many different ways. And there's numerous examples of how that's happened, and I still can't believe that, really, how he's taken that. As a cornet player, I used to hope that people enjoyed but that was very much in the moment then, particularly in the days before YouTube and all that stuff. But now, when as I say, I'm just really privileged that that's taken up and used in that way.
So where do you get, when you sit down, you talked about a few pieces that you've done, and you're fairly prolific. Where does your inspiration come? When you sit down and think, I've got some music, does it come from the brain? Does it come from the heart? Does it come from the sense of musicality? Where's your starting place?
From different places, actually. Often it's a song that I've heard.
Right.
It's just something that in a meeting I've heard and think, that'll work. Those words work. So an example of that would be, not long ago I did an arrangement of the chorus "Turn Your Eyes Upon Jesus." We talked about it in a meeting, and then I think in one of your first meetings here, actually, you mentioned that chorus, and that was after I was using it in something else not long before, and I thought, okay. And so I sat down and I played around with it and got something that I thought worked nicely for that. Other times, it's a theme of a sermon or something I'll hear somebody say, or a few words, and think, well, what words can I get from that? What music will fit with that theme? Everlasting Hope, as I say, was one that was based on the tune Grace Thy Faithfulness. That was somebody who was Graham Lampley, who was my bandmaster at music school all that time ago, when we were talking about me making that decision. That Graham was very much an important character in my life then, and when I moved to London, and he died of cancer very prematurely, and Gavin, his son, asked me to write, who had been at music school and sat next to me in the band, and now I sit with in the ISB, had asked me to write that piece, and his dad always said, when people came to visit him when he was ill, God gives him strength for today and bright hope for tomorrow. So that was how that one came about. So it's a varying degree of things that happen, really. But often it's that tune, and I sit at the piano and I play and see where that goes.
Right. So I've done a little bit of music, and I've done my music theory, grade 5, grade 6, grade 7, whatever. But for me, it's hard work. I can't recognise. It's hard work to see where chords fit and whatever. So does all that come naturally? Can you just hear it when you see it?
To an extent. It's more. I'll often need to play through it. Not from just. I'm not one of these that gets it sort of fully fledged in my head and then I just write it down.
Yeah.
You know, I'm playing at the piano and then I will write something down and then, oh, maybe that doesn't quite work. Let's try. What does this do? Let's try this chord progression. How can I harmonise that? Which motif can I take from the tune that will mean something here or there? So I wouldn't say it's easy, but there are pieces that come very quickly. Yeah. And I think, you know, they're often the pieces that speak as well because they've come from somewhere very quickly. I did an arrangement of Flow Gently Sweet Afton, which came on the back of the retirement of Shaw and Helen Clifton from IHQ. And Helen was looking very ill. She'd been very ill at that time. And a group from the ISB were there and we played Flow Gently Sweet Afton as a tune. And as we played that, that was at the end of the meeting. Steve sat down next to me and said, "Oh, I don't think there's a band arrangement of that." So I looked and there wasn't. So I sat and that within a couple of days, that had almost come fully written. And that is another one that speaks to people very much. Others, you know, you work on for a long time and it comes, and you know they're still usually pretty well received. But you can tell the ones that come quickly are often the ones I'm most pleased with. If that makes sense.
So, are you able to tell us what you're working on at the moment?
Well, I've just finished a piece of music on the tune Lathbury, which talks about the living word, break down the bread of life, which was for the ISB to use, and we premiered it on Sunday when we were away for the weekend. So I've just finished that. I've been working on a musical actually, which is a new thing for me, which had its premiere in June, and so that's what's been taking a lot of my time. And there's a couple of other band projects on the go.
So in essence, there's two contrasts there, isn't it? There's the band, which in essence you're saying the inspiration is words. But then you go to Belongings, which is the musical that you've just done. You don't have that same underpinning. You start from a different place.
Yeah. So there. Yeah, you're starting. I still have the words. When I'm writing songs, I like to have the words first. I'm not very good at so I like to have those words first. But in a way, particularly with the musical, it's getting right. What is the style of this song going to be? How can then I fit it in with those words and make it a good musical song? And to have all the different songs of the musical to be varied, so that it's it works as a whole as well as individual. It's a very different thing. It was a good challenge to be able to do and to work with Steph on that to make something that I believe is a good show.
So you're taking it to Birmingham soon, aren't you?
Yeah, we're Birmingham in a couple of weeks, and
then you're here,
hopefully in June. And then we're taking it across the territory for the next couple of years. So we've got dates more or less sorted now till October 25 with that. So if you see Belongings out there, get your tickets. It's worth it.
You've been very clear on how in the music, which is a world which you find your inspiration, sort of faith and what you do functions together. But in living, how does faith and living sort of work out for you?
Yeah, I mean, my faith is really important to me in everything I do. Some would say, I'm fortunate. As well as my work is with the Salvation Army, and it all sort of intertwines then with my church, because I work for the church. My music is all part of me, and that is very much a part of who I am. But I try and, in any dealings I have with anybody, that faith and that a surety of God being with me is there all the time. Now, trying to give everything back to him all the time is, I wouldn't say that I'm doing that every time, all the time at all. But that very much is a big part of who I am and who I try to be with my family and with all those that I come into contact with.
So if you were to have a Bible passage that has sort of something to say to you, something to say to everyone, that actually is a firm foundation, what would that be?
For me, as a favourite Bible verse, I always come back to Proverbs 3, verses 5 and 6. Trust in the Lord with all your heart. Don't lean on your own understanding. In all your ways, acknowledge him and he will direct your path. And that, as I say, I've learned that trusting in God, giving him back, for me musically, but everything, is really important. And I, as I said earlier, I believe he has honoured that. Mm-hmm. But I think it's also, the key is the word all in that. So it's trust in the Lord with all your heart. Only know you, in all your ways, acknowledge him. And actually on that, because I always say, and he will direct your path. Sometimes it's, and he will make your path straight. But I feel that actually, I don't think he necessarily makes everything easy. No. There are going to be difficult times, and I think that's why I like that sort of he will direct your path. He will get you through those difficult times. But it is trusting him that he will do that. But it's also giving everything back, and that's the challenge for me. As I say, can't say I always do that, and who can, I guess. But I try to do that as much as I can, and I think that's important. But I feel that when I do that, as I've said a number of times, God honours that and blesses what I do because of that.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Paul.
Thank you.
Thanks for talking to us, and we ask God's blessing on you for all that you continue to, and the next piece that comes along. God bless you.
Thank you.